Hi, this is Gary with MACMOST.com. Let's take a look at some multi-step keyboard shortcuts that you should know. MACMOST is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 1,000 supporters. Go to MACMOST.com/Patreon. There you could read more about it, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. So I often talk about keyboard shortcuts, but usually they're just one step. You use one combination on the keyboard and it performs an action. However, there are many keyboard shortcuts that are multi-step. You use one keyboard shortcut to set something up and then another one to complete the action. A lot of them have to do with using the keyboard shortcut Command A to select all. For instance, here I've got some text in TextEdit and let's say I want to clear this out and start again. To select everything I do Command A and then to delete I can just use the delete key. Another example would be here in the Messages app. I've started typing a message and I realize, no, that's not right. The quickest way to get back to nothing in the message is Command A and then delete. But you could also use this for a variety of other things. For instance, you can make everything bold by doing Command A and then Command B since Command B is bold. Command A also works in a variety of other situations. For instance, here I'm in List View in the Finder and let's say I want to open up all of those folders. I can use Command A to select everything and then Command and then right arrow to open up everything. So now all the folders have been opened. If I want to close them I can do Command left arrow. That's also handy if you've got, say, a few folders open but most of them are not. If you do Command A it will select everything and then Command left arrow closes everything. So it tidies up this list here and gets me back to just having things at the top level. Another use for it would be to preview everything using Quick Look. So here I've got a folder filled with files and if I did Command A and then use the space bar or Command Y for Quick Look, it brings up Quick Look. And now since I have all of those files selected I could use the right and left arrows to go through them. There's also this grid button up here to view everything in a grid. There's a keyboard shortcut for that. It's really well hidden. You can't find it anywhere, but if you experiment you would find that Command and Return switches to grid view and now you can use the arrow keys to move through them all. Back to editing text for a minute. Say you've got some text like this and you've got a bunch of different styles mixed in a selection of text. If you want to strip out all the styling here, one way to do it would be to use the copy command, so Command C. And then if you look under Edit you've got Paste and Match Style. Option Shift Command V. So just do that as your second step and paste right over what you had selected with the text but stripped of all the styles. Now note it's still taking on the style of the beginning of the selection. So for instance if I were to select from here to here the beginning of the selection is green and bold. So Command C and then Shift Option Command V will paste everything green and bold matching the style right there at the beginning. You could combine this 3 steps with Command A, then Command C, then Shift Option Command V and now it pastes all the text but with just the styling that's at the very beginning of the document. Now you may be familiar with using the app switcher Command and then Tab and then you can continue to hold down the Command key and continue to hit Tab and it will advance by one app at a time and then you can release the Command key while a certain app is highlighted and it jumps to that app. But you could also combine this with other keys as well. So for instance if I want to quit an app like this one while still holding the Command key instead of Tab or just releasing Command I can just tap Q and now it quits that app. Likewise you can hide with the H key. So I can Command Tab and continue to hold down Command and tab through and when I'm over an app I want to hide just use H for hide. So I can go to Numbers here and hide that as well. You could do a similar thing by going through tabs in an app like here I am in Safari and I can use Control Tab to advance through the tabs. If there's a tab I want to close I can now do Command W. So I can Control Tab to the tab I want, Command W to close any tab and clean up my tabs just using those 2 keyboard shortcut combinations. Now if you use Spotlight, which is Command Space, and then search for something, if you get a hit immediately and you can see how a document there is highlighted at the top, you have to have something highlighted for this to work. You can use one of 2 commands to actually do something. For instance, you can use return and it will open up that document. But you could also, when you have a document highlighted like that, do Command R and it will jump to the Finder window with that file selected. Also in Spotlight you can jump to the dictionary app. So just type something and then without auto-completing or anything just immediately go Command D. And it will open up the dictionary app and go right to that dictionary definition. If you want to add a third step, notice that under Search you can switch dictionaries. So in this case Thesaurus is Command 3. So I can do Command 3 and it will jump right there. Now several times I've actually gotten asked by people how to quickly get the name of a file, like to paste it into a document or something. And it seems like you just have to use the pointer and clicking and then select the file name and all of that. But you can actually do it with some clever keyboard shortcuts. If you go to File and then look for Duplicate, hold the Option key down and you'll find out that Option Shift Command S is Save As. Now when you do Save As with that keyboard combination, notice that the file name is selected. A quick Command C will copy it and then an Escape or Command period will dismiss it. Then you're ready with that file name in the buffer and you can paste it. Now when you go to save a document or open it using the Save or Open dialog, there are quick ways to navigate to a specific location in the Finder. So if I'm in the Finder here, notice that I can use Go and there are a bunch of keyboard shortcuts like Shift Command O for the Documents folder. Those work in Save and Open dialogs as well. So I use Command S to save this new document. And you can see here I'm not in the right location. But Shift Command O takes me right to the Documents folder. And you can use any of the other keyboard shortcuts from the Go menu of the Finder as well. This works for the Open dialog as well. Command O to open and then Shift Command and then O for the Documents folder. If you want to go just about anywhere you can always do Command S or Command O and then do Shift Command G to open the Go to Folder dialog here and you could simply type a path if you really want to. Now this one needs some setup. If you're working in an app and you want to regularly export as a PDF, you've got some options. For instance, in the Pages here you can go to File. You could go to Export to, select PDF. You're going to get this other dialog here. There's a bunch of different steps. Another way to do it that works in any app, even if there's no Export to PDF function, is to use File Print or Command P and then click the PDF button. Or click here and then click Save as PDF. Now when you do that, that's a bunch of steps and it doesn't look like there's any way to set a keyboard shortcut combination to get here. You have to select this menu or click the PDF part of the button there. But you actually can. Even though custom keyboard shortcuts are only supposed to work on the menu bar, there is an exception for some menus like this one. So I'm going to go into System Settings and then I'm going to go to Keyboard. And then I'm going to create a new keyboard shortcut here under Keyboard Shortcuts in the App Shortcuts section. I'm going to click the plus button. I'm going to leave it for all applications and I'm going to set the menu title to Save as PDF ... It has to be exact. In other words, a lowercase a, you've got to put 3 dots after it and everything. I'm going to set the keyboard shortcut to be Command P. So that's already File Print. But there is no Save as PDF ... So I'm fine in using it. And if I'm done with that, I go back to Pages, you can see that File Print is still Command P. And there's no menu that's been changed to be Command P for Save as PDF. But if I print or Command P and now that I'm in this dialog I do an additional Command P, it will actually allow me to save as a PDF even though I didn't actually select the menu. It's a weird extra place that you could actually set keyboard shortcuts. As a matter of fact, even if there is an Export as PDF menu item that you could easily access, maybe already a keyboard shortcut, you may actually want to use the Open in Preview here. So you could make that the shortcut instead. It's really handy to quickly be able to go and create a document in Preview and do various things with it there from any app. So in System Settings, under Keyboard Shortcuts, I'm going to go to App Shortcuts. I'm going to get rid of this one here. Instead, I'm going to do Open in Preview. There's no 3 dots and it is a lowercase I. And I'm going to set this to be Command P. And now if I were to go in here and print Command P and look in the menu, you could see Command P is open in preview. So a quick Command P will make this a PDF opened in preview, ready for me to save or mark up or do whatever I want to do with it. Another common two-step thing to do with keyboard shortcuts is to do a find, Command F, and then to type something to look for. And notice it found many of these. Now I can continue to use this here, but I could also just use Escape to get out of it and then Command G to jump to each one. You could find all this under Edit and then Find. Command F is Find. Command G is Find Next. You can even move backwards through them all with Shift Command G. Notice another one here is Use Selection for Find. So if you know what you want, like for instance I want to look for all instances of this, I can select it and then do Command E and it will try to find it. And of course it found it. It's right there. But now Command G will move through all of them. So I hope this gives you some ideas of what you can do by looking for combinations of keyboard shortcuts and using two keyboard shortcuts right after each other to accomplish something pretty quickly. Really not that much harder than just one. In fact, for my own app ClipTools, I built this into it with the idea being that in Settings you could go in and set a global keyboard shortcut to activate the menu. In this case it's Shift Command M. And I've got that set to Activate Menu. Now you can use one of the other keyboard shortcuts here to do something in a second step. For instance, under Selection Case I've got Shift Command H for Headline Case. So if you wanted to make something Headline Case you can simply do Shift Command M as your first step and then while still holding Shift and Command down just use H to activate that specific command. And you could do that throughout ClipTools. For instance, if you wanted to paste the date somewhere, that's Shift Command D. So Shift Command M followed by Shift Command D, paste the date. So I hope you found all of this useful. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up button below to let me know. I publish new tutorials each weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out.